Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhaled frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, you know, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great.
Just like cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Oh, yes. Good afternoon, Tokers and Tokettes. Brian the Red here, sitting in at Rolla J Studios for Radical Russ off in Georgia. Over the weekend, he was a special guest on a local cable access show there in Georgia called The Arena, and we're going to bring you that show in its entirety right now, so enjoy.
Oh yeah, Black Sun and the Hizzle off a shizzle dizzle. We got an excellent show today. And before we start, I want to say the views and expressions of The Arena does not reflect that of Comcast, its staff, or membership. Viewer discretion is advised. With that being said, this is going to be the last discussion on marijuana for the year. Because, you know, this is about the sixth one. You know, we keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so now we have a doctor to present the last show of the year. So with that being said, I want to introduce my panel. To the right, we have the doctor. Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for this opportunity to be here. My name is Dr. Dhanabalan.
Yes, thank you, doctor. Okay, and to her right, we got, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Radical Russ Belville. I'm the executive producer of 420radio.org, the world's 24-hour marijuana legalization network.
All right. Now, okay, I'm going to get to you. I got to ask a question on that. And to his right, we got Brother Ian, one of the original.
No doubt, man.
Atheists.
What's
up?
They
talking about black, the real black, the original.
Ian the Atheist, man. Original black atheist of Atlanta, man. Co-host, man. Happy to be here, man. We're going to break down some bud today, right?
Right. Well, hey, and I want to return you from the original.
Thank you, sir.
You one of the originals. And then to his right, we got the lovely Chi Mayat.
Greetings.
Naturopathic Heather. Yes. Introduce yourself, Chi.
I'm Chi Mayat, health and wellness advocate, also author of Healing Gifts from Our Planet, A Woman's Journey to Vibrant Health. I'm here today to discuss our topic of marijuana, whether it should be legal or not, and is it really useful?
All right. So we have two topics here that I want to discuss. We have the legalization of medical marijuana, and then we have the casual use of marijuana. So these will be two different discussions, right? Okay, so my first question is, I looked on the, is marijuana a medicine? And they say that a lot of the medicines already have the healing properties in it. So why the push for legalization when they've already, basically have the ingredients in a lot of the medication as far as...
In what medications?
Well, they didn't specify. They just said a lot of them are really, they're using some of the ingredients in the marijuana already, but they're just not letting us know about it.
Okay. Cannabis, first of all, let me start out. Cannabis means canna, which is stalk, and bi, which means two. So cannabis is a plant, a flowering plant that has the stalks and has two sexes in it. The male one is the one that we are using for a lot of the medicinal purposes.
Okay.
Cannabis has been around for thousands of years.
Right.
What we are learning now is that a system called the endocannabinoid system, or otherwise known as ECS, is actually within our own body.
Right.
We've just learned to discover it, and also that there are receptors. What we found out is that cannabis is able to mimic the same receptors, to fulfill those receptors, and the cannabinoids. Cannabis has about over 400 components in it. It has about 60 to 80 cannabinoids. There are two primary receptors that we're aware of right now, which is called the CB1 and CB2. The CB1 is primarily in the brain. It's also in other parts of the organ system, like the liver, the kidneys, or pancreas, or spleen. The CB2s are primary receptors that we're realizing are in the immune system.
Okay.
I could go a little further if you like and give you
Yeah, I
more
want
detail.
to know, do other animals have this same system?
Excellent question. We've actually learned that these receptors are over 600 million years old, and they have evolved from the sea squirt as being one of the oldest ones that we know about in the human beings.
So basically, marijuana is further proof of evolution.
Absolutely.
Okay, okay.
I like that concept.
Okay, okay.
I really like that concept.
Definitely.
I've never heard it put that way, but I am glad to hear you saying it.
No doubt.
And to go to your question of, there's constituents of marijuana that many people want to make into pharmaceutical medications. One company out in Britain is called GW Pharmaceuticals, and they extract some of the cannabinoids like THC or CBD. They're making another a particular drug called Epidiolex. So there are scientists and researchers working out there to make standard type pharmaceutical pills, sprays, and inhalers for cannabis. But one of the reasons why so many patients turn to the natural herb is because of something that Dr. Sanjay Gupta revealed, and speaking to Dr. Raphael Mitchullam, is this entourage effect, that the cannabinoids work better as part of the natural plant. I mean, if you can think of how an orange is healthier for you than, say, orange juice from concentrate. It's kind of that idea. Plus, with cannabis, you can grow your own medicine, you can handle your own treatment, and it's often much cheaper and more reliable, and with such low risk of side effects compared to a lot of these pharmaceuticals, it's no wonder so many people are turning to it.
But let me ask a question, because you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned the orange and the orange juice, and we're going to get to chia in just a minute here. Let's just say you have the marijuana plant. Okay, so it has one chemical. So when you burn it, it becomes a chemical compound, a whole different chemical. So are we talking the natural plant, or are we talking the burnt plant?
Good question. There are many people now who are using cannabis as the unburned plant, using it in edibles, using it in its raw form, juicing it. That's becoming more popular.
So what's the best way to get
it? Depends on your. It really depends on what your needs are as a patient. When you're eating cannabis, the THC that we know is metabolized differently inside the body, in the gut. It turns into 11-hydroxy, which is a much more psychoactive type of chemical. When you're inhaling it, if you're using it with vaporization or smoking, you have an immediate feedback. You know when you've had enough. You're not going to use too much because you can feel it as you're using it. But it really depends on the patient. I'm sure you have a lot of patients that have a lot of needs that differ.
Absolutely. First of all, right now we have 3 ways that we can consume it. It can be either eaten, and with the form of being eaten, there are products from cookies to cakes to making teas to tinctures, which is becoming very popular.
So, doctor, we're not talking about actually burning the plant.
No, we're talking about consuming it in 3 ways.
Just taking it like a herb,
You can take it in, like I said, there's 3 options, and everybody's a little different. And that's the beauty of cannabis. There is no one cookie cutter. There is no take this pill at this dose 6 times a day. Everybody's a little different.
Right, but so we're going to run into regulation issues as far as the government's concerned. So let's just say, like, take 2 Tylenols and call me in the morning. You know, take 300 milligrams,
Well, we might say
milligrams.
start out with 2 puffs. That might be the first thing with 2 drops.
Whoa, wait a minute. 2 puffs? Okay, so you're saying
we can
2
inhale
drops.
it? No, it depends. First of all, let me go back. First of all, you can either inhale it. Either it's smoked or vaporized. Those are the 2 popular methods right now. We can ingest it, which is in food products, or drinking it, or teas, or tinctures, or we can apply it topically.
So, but isn't when smoke comes into the lungs, I mean, the lungs reject smoke of any kind.
Well, any type you inhale anything.
Right.
It's an irritant. It could be an irritant.
Right.
But the beauty of cannabis is that it has its own anti-inflammatory products. That is why people are always amazed when you have an asthmatic patient or a patient with COPD that is on oxygen in a COPD patient or on an inhaler in a patient that has asthma who is turning to cannabis and they are inhaling it. Because instead of a patient that's asthmatic to hit on their inhaler and have palpitations and also, they're already in a panic attack because they're constricted, and where they can just either by smoking or an inhaler in a vaporization form, within 15 seconds they have the impact. 20 seconds.
I have a question about that, Doctor. I have my own mic, but just like I'm a raw foodist as well, and an herbalist, and anytime you heat food, you change it. Anytime you light something like cannabis, you would change it. Would there be any difference of the compound as smoking it as you would eating it? Because if you're lighting it up and you're inhaling it, you're changing the compound, correct?
And that's absolute. This is very interesting because, again, it varies from patient to patient. It really depends on also their metabolic system as far as their liver, primarily because cannabis is metabolized in the liver when ingested. But when you smoke it, it actually gets directly into the bloodstream. That's why it's able to impact so quickly. And because it's a lipophilic, meaning it's fat soluble versus water soluble, it's able to get right into the blood-brain barrier, cross it, and impact right at the different locations of the brain.
But what I'm hearing is, so what you're saying is it's not a one cure that cures all, basically. It's just based on the individual.
As far as the treatment purpose of it?
Let's just say I have glaucoma, he has something, she has something. So you're saying that it's a one drug cure-all?
It's absolutely a one cure-all for multiple purposes.
Okay,
Having
Doc,
said that...
Wait a minute, you said cure.
Yes.
Now I've got to ask the tough questions here.
The word cure can be extended to different things, okay? What cures a cold could be, rest and relaxation.
No, I got a question for that one.
Okay.
I got a question for that one. Because as a herbalist and natural food and believer in alternative medicine, I believe that the body heals itself. I believe that that whatever you assist the body with the healing, whether it's an herb or tincture, it assists the body into doing its own healing.
Absolutely correct.
So there would be, in my estimation, I don't like to use the word cure, I like to use the word healing.
Right.
So if I'm going to ingest something, it's not this is going to cure me, this is going to help me heal myself.
I love what you just said, because this is the heart of the endocannabinoid system. It was meant in our body for absolute recovery and adaptation. What has happened with time is that our body's not able to cope with it anymore. Okay? What we were exposed to, where we were able to rest, our food was healthier. We have so much stuff that we don't even know what's in our system. We don't know how to relax.
Right.
We don't know. And this is right up the line as far as Dr. DiMarzo in 1998 in Trends in Neurology said this system was meant to relax, to eat, to rest, to forget, and protect. These are very key words.
So the body makes THC naturally, does it make
it? It makes endocannabinoids.
Okay.
THC is what we find in cannabis.
Okay.
So those are two different words, but the system that it works with is the endocannabinoid system. And I want to reiterate this, because this is a system, we need to understand the system, because it is what exists within our body.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to repeat that, within our body.
So it assists as in the rehabilitation of our
normal functioning day-to-day life.
Okay, so what you're saying is the marijuana speeds this up, or?
Well, the marijuana now is a supplementation. What it's able to do is, again, balancing this whole system out.
So why not get it through broccoli, cauliflower,
because broccoli
kale
does
greens?
not have the cannabinoids. There is no broccoli receptor. There is a cannabis receptor.
So there's no vegetable that you can actually eat that has no...
That maybe there is other things that we'll find, but right now the topic of the point is we're talking about cannabis.
Right, absolutely.
And so that's what...
well, the reason I bring that up, because people, in arguments' sake, they always say, well, you can get that through a vegetable, a tomato, or potato, Why you gotta smoke the weed? What's the problem?
To get to what you're getting at here, the endocannabinoid system and the receptors we have, if you think of a receptor like a lock, and your endocannabinoids, the anandamide is the one that we produce, is a certain molecule that fits into that receptor and twists the lock, right? It opens that lock. Well, THC that comes from a cannabis plant will also work on that lock. Not in the same way, not in the same level or maybe effectiveness, but it also opens that same lock. So why can't we get that from broccoli? Because broccoli doesn't fit that keyhole. It's not going to open it. An orange is not going to open that. And the other thing about the endocannabinoid system, to go to what Dr. Uma was saying, is I've heard it referred to as what helps to regulate our body's homeostasis. And most of in fact, all of the pathways in the human body, if you think of the nerves and the blood and all the different systems we have, are kind of a one direction sort of flow, and the endocannabinoid system flows the other way. It's like the feedback mechanism. It's how our hearts are told are kept in line, and our temperature is kept at a certain stasis and so forth. Appetite, memory, and so many things.
Well, good question, because the doc, she talked about how it helps you relax. But the body, now y'all can quote me on this and correct me, you can have too much rest and kind of throw off your sleep. Because I've seen where sites talked about insomnia. Now, my only guesstimation, and you can correct me, Doc, and you can correct me also, is that when you take marijuana, it'll relax you, but for every relaxation, there's a period of time where you have to wake. I call it the sleep zone. If you go to bed at an early time, you can wake up at a time. You go to bed late, you wake up late. So does it throw off? So does it actually throw off the natural ability to say, you know what, I worked 8 hours, now I'm winding down, going to bed, and I can wake up, as opposed to, I'm going to sleep all day long. I don't feel like going to work.
I think that's a good question. If it's a depressant or a stimulant, what is it categorized as?
Well, there's a lot of variety in cannabis, and Dr. Uma already mentioned that there's two main types. There's the indica and the sativa. Sativa, and again, it depends on the person using it, but for myself, sativa is stimulant's not quite the right word, because that kind of connotes an artificial jump starting of your nervous system, but sativas generally make me feel more focused, awake, attentive, and creative.
That's a stimulant.
Yeah. The indicas, she has her thing with indica. My little thought thing on indica is couch. Because if you're going to smoke indica, you're going to be into couch, right? Because it does have more body, relaxation, muscles, pain, the stiffness, arthritis, those kind of effects are better treated generally with an indica. And then within both sativa and indica, there are so many different varieties of plant. You may have heard the silly names, Super Silver Haze and Skunk this and OG Kush and so on, which I don't think are any sillier than Celebrex, Vioxx, and anything else with an X in it. But
so those same attributes, basically, they'll suppress some pain, like say if I got a toothache or this and that. So my question is, I see the advantages of maybe if I have arthritis or if I hurt myself, but what major illness does it cure, though?
The cure, the latest one that we're finding information on, is head trauma, concussion. There is no cure for concussion. There's treatment for it, right? You're a football player or a boxer or whatever, you get hit in the head. We can treat your pain, we can treat everything, but there's nothing to actually help fix the sheared up brain neurons that happen from that impact. Cannabis actually does. THC actually generates a protein that helps the brain protect its own neural cells to the point where about 50% of a concussion can be recovered from.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there was a young man who was protesting out in Oakland, California, and got hit in the head with a beanbag. He's just now sued. He was on Democracy Now! As of recent. So you're saying is basically, because he said he told Amy Goodman basically half his brain is dead. So you're saying that would cure?
It would definitely help him with more of his recovery. Get to back to 100% where he was before he got hit? Probably not.
Okay.
But he's going to be better off than with any other. In fact, I foresee a day when on the sideline of every NFL stadium there will be vaporizers, and when a player gets a concussion, that will be the first treatment for the guy, is to get him some THC.
Okay.
Well, the beauty of cannabis is we've always, and I want to reiterate this over and over, it is so variable in its therapeutic effects. We still don't know the scope of this yet. We are learning, and a lot of this is I have learned through my patients. I have had patients from the age of 18 to 96, and they're not all looking for the recreational or the social cannabis.
Right, understood, right.
And when you have a patient that walks in that's on over 25 medications and is sick and tired of it and has gone through the gamut of every side effect because of the medication and is toxic from it, that's criminal that we can't offer them something else. And my first line thing is that why can't we use cannabis first? Why does somebody have to have been treated with all the other medication? I mean, we're not even talking pharmaceuticals from a prescription. We're talking Advil, Tylenol. These two meds are used like candy in our society.
Well, Doc, as you know, Chief can back me up on that, we're not here to cure anybody. We're here to make money.
Well, we are here. I mean, the beauty of cannabis, we're talking about it also, is that it is preventive. That's what's amazing. None of these pills are preventive. They are treatments.
Well, they're not designed to be preventive.
Right.
I mean, Chief, you can touch on that, right?
I'm just afraid that if or when it becomes legal, that the pharmaceutical industry doesn't change it just to make money, and then it's not as effective as it would be in its natural state, like herbs, like when you go to the herb store.
Yeah, like synthetic
I'm
THC,
really,
right.
I'm really skeptical. I mean, because they've done that to so many things. They've taken, and it's just about money, man. It's about making money.
Right.
It's not about healing or helping people heal. So how do we handle that part of the?
I think you bring up a very good point that we're trying. People don't. I think there's such a misconception of cannabis. It's just thought of as a drug, and sad to say.
Oh, is it a drug?
It is a drug.
Okay, all right.
It is a drug, but the connotation of this drug is that you're out of your mind and that you sit on a couch and you do absolutely nothing. We are learning from the array of people. There are so many people being healed by this.
Well, Doctor, I think the issue here is we're having two different discussions. Now, we here on Arena, we're for the medical use of it. But what I think the concern is, this being Georgia, southern state down here, we're concerned
you got to break down the decriminalization versus the legalization, because I don't want these kids out here just walking around with a blunt.
Well, this is one of the issues that people, I'd rather be smoking a blunt than instead of having a beer in their hand.
No, I'm talking about for the police sake and the safety of our kids, man.
Right.
Well, that's going to also have to change. I mean, the first thing, and I'm going to let Russ answer a little bit about this, because decriminalization and legalization and medical marijuana are three different topics.
Right, that's right.
Okay, they're not to be confused, and I don't want that to be confused, and I'm going to let Russ answer.
No, that's why, for the record.
Yes, they're three different things.
Right, so that's why I wanted to really kind of
she's
fine
doing
tune
medical
this.
marijuana.
Right, she's doing the medical, so that's good to get towards you right there.
The issues, they're separate issues. They do have effects on one another, though. The fact that marijuana has been illegal for so long and been a black market commodity has led the people breeding the cannabis to breed out certain aspects of it. If you saw the Sanjay Gupta documentary, you saw these little epileptic kids get healed from CBD. Well, it's very difficult for us to get plants that have CBD because that doesn't get you high. In fact, the plant they made for this little girl was originally called Hippie's Disappointment, because it wouldn't get you high.
Right.
When people are breeding plants to sell on the black market, they want the most bang for the buck. They want the high THC. And so all these strains now have been developed into the recreational market and wanting to affect the mind and the attitude and the mood, when there's so many other cannabinoids that they didn't get paid attention to because it wasn't important recreationally. So they do affect one another. As far as the decriminalization and the legalization, in case some folks may not know, decrim just basically means if you use it, we won't put you in jail. We might give you a ticket, we might give you a sanction, it's just a ticket, a fine,
So we're
whatever.
still going to make money off of it.
But it does nothing to change the market. If you buy, sell, or grow, you're still going to go to prison.
Right, absolutely.
And that's where the violence and the problem and the crimes are. So decrim, I'm not going to oppose decrim, but it just does not go far enough. And for people that are afraid of legalization, I think they're framing it in the wrong, they got it framed wrong in their heads, thinking that legalization means we're going to approve of or that we are going to invite marijuana use.
Right.
Well, the fact is people have been using marijuana for thousands of years. Right now there's 27 million annual smokers, 17 million monthly, 10 million weekly, and 3 million daily marijuana smokers, and they're not going anywhere.
Right.
So the choice is not whether we legalize or don't legalize, it's whether we give the profits to criminals or to taxpayers. That's the question.
Okay.
Do we regulate this? Because it's not going to go anywhere. And we learned this lesson with, say, running the numbers. There used to be running the numbers. Well, now we have state lotteries.
That's right.
Not because we thought gambling was cool, but we realized that, if we legalize this, the state could make some money on it, and we could put some money toward problem gambling. Right. We could help people.
My issue is this because, with alcohol, prescription medicine, there are checks and balances.
Mm-hmm.
You have, you cannot buy a 40 ounce and go drive in your car,
Mm-hmm.
or you might get a ticket for public drunkenness. So there are checks and balances.
Sure.
So my question is, because I know we talked about the medical aspects. We there,
Mm-hmm.
but the other side of the fence, the other folk, you got people rooting for y'all for their only personal gain. Like, I can't wait to get high.
And I think
there's some weed there, whack it right there, money.
I think another one of those. That's another one of those issues there is when we're talking about whether or not we're going to support this. It's not whether or not we're going to support people getting high. They are. They already are. We're just trying to decide what are we going to do about it.
But doesn't this create a false sense of security for the young mind?
Well,
like, it's legal. Oh, I can smoke now. See, people, like you said, they get in the wrong concept because we're talking about healing people, cancer patients, people getting head traumas. Mm-hmm. Confused with walking down the street, smoking, and those, what I'm saying? So we're talking, that's why I try to have conversations with people. Like, I had a conversation with a person where I said, I'm all for medical marijuana, but I'm not for the casual use because casual use, there has to be checks and balances, meaning, let me just ask this question. Is marijuana addictive?
Well, let me get to your checks and balances and I'll answer that too, because I'm glad you bring up checks and balances because under Prohibition we have none. There is no check and balance on marijuana. How much marijuana are you allowed to have? How much marijuana are you allowed to use?
And are you allowed to drive?
Right.
Operate
under Prohibition,
machinery.
it's just, you can't have it. All right, well, what if I do have it? How do I behave responsibly? There's no guidance. With alcohol, we don't want people drinking and driving.
Right.
We have that check and balance through DUI laws and through public information campaigns. Click it or ticket, don't drink and drive, friends don't let friends drive drunk, drive responsibly. We don't get those
Alcoholics
messages.
Anonymous.
We don't get those messages with marijuana because of its illegality. The checks and balances comes from the regulation. When we regulate it, the check and balance comes of checking kids' IDs. When we regulate it, the check and balance comes of keep it in adult stores. When we regulate it, the check and balance comes with TV ads. In fact, Colorado just released 3 ads that had to do with don't drive high. And they're hilarious, by the way. You should look them up.
Let me tell you something. The doc here won half the battle already because she said that marijuana is a drug. So once we can admit that it's a drug, then we meet you halfway there. Because when they see people say, oh, it's not a drug, I'm saying, these people are not realistic. Okay, so now my question is, and I'm about to meet y'all halfway.
Okay.
See, I'm the United States government, so I'm about to see how honest you are.
Okay.
Is marijuana addictive?
Yes. Marijuana is addictive, sugar is addictive, fat is addictive, salt is addictive, video games
sugar's
are
a drug.
addictive. There's a lot of things that are addictive, but how I kind of take
psychologically or biologically.
This is where I take a.
There's a big candidas in my stomach there.
I'll let the doctor answer the medical aspect of it, but I can tell you from a personal point of view. My father was a speed addict and an alcoholic, and when I was 11 years old, he went back in a trailer house that was behind our home and tried kicking cold turkey for 3 weeks, and I had to listen to him screaming, and my mom pulling out buckets of puke and rags from wiping down the walls, from him hallucinating and and him bleeding from picking things off his skin.
Yeah.
Now, when I smoke marijuana daily, but when I have to go a week or two without marijuana, that doesn't happen. I might be a little grumpy the first day.
Look,
I might have
grumpy.
trouble sleeping that first night. But aside from
Just
that,
a little grumpy.
Just a little grumpy.
Just a little grumpy.
Tiny bit.
Define a little grumpy.
I just want to back
is
up
it addictive?
It is addictive by nature.
Okay.
What I mean is that depends on the person. Okay?
Okay.
If somebody gets addicted to sugar, when they come off of it, they're going to have symptoms. The same way, it's more of a habit forming than an addictive.
Well, let me just say this real quick, Doc. So, you know, we got some prisons down here, and we look at the stats, right?
Sad.
And every time the young black males get out of prison, they don't commit new crimes. We just say, you know what, we're going to test you for THC. And about 98% of them go right back to prison. Now, if that ain't an addiction, I don't know what is.
Well, you know, it's interesting because the original data from what I've seen is that what had happened is people got arrested for marijuana possession.
Right.
Okay? And this is where it comes down to the legal system. They had a choice whether to spend time in jail or to attend a program. So, of course, patients, the people that were arrested ended up being patients at these institutions.
I'm for that.
And when they went and looked at the data and drug tested them, people that are marijuana users, it's in their system much longer because it is fat soluble. If somebody had done cocaine, it's out of their system in 3 days. So you do the stats now.
But most of your average, let me just say black males. I'm going to just say all your black males know the time period that it stays in your system, but they're going to smoke it anyway.
But that's,
I got to go
that's
see the
neither here nor
probationer.
there. What I'm trying to explain is how the data came out to say that cannabis was addictive. They went into these places where they were being treated and saying you are cannabis positive. Therefore, you are addicted to it, and cannabis is an addictive drug. Not because of looking at what got them there. Not that they made a choice instead of being in prison. And cannabis is going to stay in your system. Even if there are people that stop smoking, but if they were chronic users, it could stay in their system for more than 45 days.
45 days.
And it also depends on how fat you are. If you're male or female. Because
how much melanin you got, too.
It has a lot of variations.
Good point, in.
Okay.
No, I mean,
but I want to leave this main point. You brought up about alcohol. Tobacco kills over 450,000 people a year. Alcohol kills over 90,000 people a year. Marijuana kills zero. Zero. I want this.
So it has no tar? No tar, no...
Cannabis has resins, okay? Tobacco has tar. Tobacco has tar. So this is the point. People die from aspirin. People die from prescription drugs. Over 35,000 people die from prescription drugs. There is nobody dying from cannabis.
Does it make a difference what you smoke the weed in? What type of paper you roll?
It can. Just to address some of the smoking things, because you had a question about smoking earlier too that I want to make sure got covered. In 2006, the Washington Post reported on a doctor named Dr. Donald Tashkin. He was a University of California, Los Angeles researcher, pulmonologist, who'd done a 30-year retrospective study on people who smoked cannabis, people who smoked tobacco, people who smoked both, and people who smoked neither. Okay, so you got all your possibilities there.
I'm going to have to gather both of y'all because tobacco is not on trial here. It's cannabis.
But what they found, what Dr. Tashkin found, was that not only did cannabis smokers, only cannabis, cannabis smokers have not a higher incidence of head, neck, or lung cancer, they had a lower incidence of head, neck, and lung cancer. Pot smokers get less lung cancer than non-smokers.
Whoa, wait. See, you're living trick of words here. You're saying, let me slow this down. You're saying that, so you're not saying that the marijuana cures the throat cancer, you're just saying there's less likely as
it's a preventative. It helps to prevent it from happening in the first place.
Okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to check all
Well,
these
wait,
stats.
I got an answer on that.
Okay.
Cannabis has been found to have about 4 properties when we're talking about cancer, okay? It has the property of what we called anti-proliferative, which means it stops it from, let me get my glasses on here, being able to grow and reproduce. It also has the ability as an anti-metastatic, which means you've heard the word, well, it started out here, it ended up in their brain. or the cancer started out here and it ended up in their bone. So it also has that property of it.
Okay, so wait. So now you're saying that let me have a real quick question here before I forget, because Ian had the same question. So you're saying that the marijuana is a male and female, so it has testosterone and estrogen in it, correct?
Right, we're talking about the male plants.
The male plants, okay.
But what I'm talking about, the properties of this plant is that anti-proliferative, meaning that it doesn't help the cancer cells to reproduce, so keep that happening.
Okay.
It's anti-angiogenic, and this is huge because you need blood formation for a cell to survive. It's able to not allow the blood formation for the cancer cells alone. It protects the good cells. It stops the blood flow to the cancer cells. And we've mentioned that it doesn't spread to the organ, and it's another beauty thing. It's called apoptotic, which means that it induces the cancer cells to seek death. As we normally age, our cells die off, and that our body knows it needs to die off, okay? And new cells are reproduced. Well, we want those cancer cells to be killed. We want them to kill themselves.
So what's
and that's what cannabis is able to do also. These are the 4 properties that we have in the literature that has been well established.
Yeah, I have another question for you too. You mentioned earlier that marijuana or the cannabis does pass the blood-brain barrier.
Yes.
Have they done any studies to use that as a carrier?
You are right on the money, Dawn, because they're actually using it now for chemotherapy agents, especially with some of these glioblastomas, which are deadly. I mean, death sentence as soon as you're diagnosed.
Right, that's right.
We are now being able, and again, the beauty of this beautiful molecule, that it is able to, I call it sort of being the missile in the submarine. It's able to carry it right there and go boom. Take care of the problem right at the moment where it's impacted.
I got an important question for the men. Does it slow down sperm production?
That's a good question.
Well, let's see. Bob Marley had 11 kids. Willie Nelson had 9
man.
kids.
That's
Tommy
Jamaican
Chong
food.
has 7 kids.
That's the mangoes,
man. There's a tiny, slight effect, but not to the point where anybody's going to be going sterile at any point. And it's temporary to the point when you're using the cannabis. So when you're high, yeah, you might not be able to conceive as well. But once you've not used for a day or so, it's not going to be much difference.
But wouldn't it let's just say, Ben brings up a great point here, because with the males, we're having problems with the plastics. So marijuana, would it anticipate if I'm having just a little trouble having kids? So wouldn't marijuana intensify that trouble?
If you're trying to
with the estrogen,
yeah, probably best to not use cannabis.
Okay, I'm glad. Okay,
so the government could be using this as some population control on the black males, man.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
It's such a small effect. It's not even.
I mean, we're looking at actually studies now, even with mothers that are using it while they're pregnant, and even while they're breastfeeding. And this is another thing. People don't realize a mother that breastfeeds her, the first drop that baby gets has endocannabinoids in it. So from birth to death, and again, this is within our body. This is not something foreign. This is something within our body, and again, it's able to recover and adapt our body.
So what level of THC is toxic? What?
0. There's been some studies that say between 4,000 to 40 times the amount of a recreational user. By that time, you're going to be sleeping on that couch, and you will. But again, to answer your question, there is no component of cannabis that is known to be a respiratory depressant. Now, that's what kills people with alcohol and prescription medications. That's not what's happening.
So do you think they should have put the amount of THC on a bag or a bottle? Should they tell you how much is in it?
I think we're getting there, where we're going to be able to say, this is the concentrate, and this is where I think research is going to be very important. And I know, coming back to your question about I think the pharmaceuticals can get really involved in this. I know in Europe they're using cannabis as suppositories, so there's a different delivery system. So again, the thought process here has been this whole concentration about CBDs, and we don't want the euphoric effect. Well, what's wrong with people being happy is my question. Why can't this component, we are supposed to be relaxed and happy.
But why not do that naturally, Like I said,
that's what our body's trying to do. Our body's trying to do that naturally. We're not able to keep up with it.
But wait a minute, Doc. For every action, there's a reaction. So if I have something inducing my happiness, won't that bring me down to a depressed state if it's
That's
not
the
natural?
beauty again of the system. It's not, it just keeps going. It says, okay, there's a shut-off point. And again, this is where we're, people always think of cannabis as getting the munchies. Well, guess what? We're using it for people that are obese now.
But Doc, there's a setup there. Because I've had friends where they be like, oh man, I ain't got no marijuana, I'm depressed. Man, oh my gosh, man.
Well, maybe because this is what they are lacking. And bringing up the point of this huge thing of PTSD. We've got these patients, vets that are out there that are depressed, that are dying.
No, I can understand that.
But cannabis now.
So what I'm saying is that, okay, let's just say my natural body function, it gives out a 60, okay? With marijuana, it takes me to 100. So now it's taking me back down below 60. Now I'm depressed because it doesn't work like that, or?
Not for me. I can't speak for everyone, but
okay.
A lot of patients are using cannabis to treat depression. It's actually something that helps to relieve their depression. And I think one of the problems we have with talking about cannabis is we have all these frames around, say, alcohol or tobacco or drugs that we think of, and we try to apply them to cannabis, and they don't.
I'm strictly, when I'm coming at cannabis, I'm strictly talking about people that I know that strictly smoke weed and have gotten locked up for weed, have been repeat offenders over weed, everything, no alcohol in sight, no methamphetamines, no coke, no needles. I'm talking about strictly marijuana.
And for every one of them, there's probably 10, 20, 30 of me.
Right.
Everybody's different, and there might be some underlying thing going on with them. I don't know.
Ian brought up a good point. Now, studies have shown that people of color, like Caucasians, have a higher tolerance for alcohol and drugs, and when we get it, we're higher susceptible to become addicts. I know, Ian, you made that point, right?
Because we absorb it. The melanin is a great absorber and a conductor, so that's why we had the best taste buds.
And it also puts you all at a disadvantage in drug testing.
Yes.
Right, absolutely.
You're more likely to get popped in drug testing, especially hair testing. The people of Mediterranean and African American descent will hold on to that in their hair longer. Blonde white guy
like me. Do you think that's the reason why it's illegal?
The reason why it's illegal?
Because most of drug laws are against
the reason why marijuana was first criminalized back in 1937 was because we recognized that we couldn't lock people up for the color of their skin anymore, so we found a way to lock them up for what they were doing.
Absolutely.
That's what it really is about. There's a great book out by Michelle Alexander called The New Jim Crow. So she's an Ohio State University professor. There's a breakthrough book where she takes a look at the stats. There are more African American people under correctional supervision for drugs today than there were slaves in 1850. So this is a system of control and a system of abuse of people, and it's a way of controlling people, and that's one of the primary reasons I fight this. Not because I'm interested in helping people get high or breaking the rules or doing bad things, but I'm just interested in justice and freedom and fairness, and it's just not right for us to be treating people this way over something they're doing to just themselves.
True.
Continue. Yes. Well, Black Sun, I'm Gideon right here. And when we talk about cannabis sativa and its effects, when we talk about inhaling it, the burning of that herb seems to be toxic because, and when I say it seems to be toxic, because anytime you burn anything, it changes the nature of the chemical compound, as you were saying. Because I've used marijuana for many years off and on, and it makes, for me, it's been the way I've medicated myself. But my brother, I mean, when you were talking about marijuana and its effects on our people, what made you key in on that, as it pertains to the criminalization of the...
Because I'm trying to figure out where the government is coming right now. All of a sudden you want to decriminalize it, legalize. I wonder if this is just a big pacifier to pacify us, make us more docile, weaken our sperm, you know what I mean? I don't know if they're trying to control or something like that, you know, because basically all the drug laws that ever been made is against people of color. All the safety laws are for white people.
Absolutely. Well, and then Sister Chi, you were mentioning, because see, you all are so educated in this arena, and that is such a beautiful thing, because that's what we need is education. And I believe you're correct. But it was we did a show called Smallpox in the Blanket. That's right. But we were talking about marijuana. And of course, Black has always had an issue with marijuana. Now he's changed, and since medical marijuana is on the scene, but he used to rail on me because I smoke. But I think there are many in our community, I think because of the propaganda that has been put out, that rail against the use of a natural herb. Now, Sister Chi, when we talk about the naturalness of marijuana, how do you feel it's being applied in the government's input into our system? Because remember, Maxine Waters in the Senate was saying that crack was put in our communities in the 80s. My brother just mentioned about this. What are your thoughts as a naturalist looking at the government's involvement with this issue?
Well, I think that there's a couple views on that. The one is that the government is always looking for a way to make money.
Right.
And that way to make money, in my view, it doesn't matter about healing. It doesn't matter about lives. How many people's lives are sacrificed? It's their bottom line. It's their bottom line is how can we make money? How can we make a profit on this? And that's the piece that I like to look at with a magnifying glass. On the other side of me being an herbalist and me being a naturopath is that when I go into the health food store and I'm gathering my herbs to either assist my body in healing or assist others in their healing journey, I'd like to be able to go up to the herbology section and if I need to get some cannabis to assist someone or assist myself, and tell them, just about how much to take, or maybe they should turn it into a tea or a tincture in order to heal themselves. Okay. So, there is a positive side of the healing benefit of cannabis.
Well, Delta-9 THC, the chemical agent, see, that's the only thing I have disagreed with you on, with your beautiful eloquence, is that marijuana is a drug. Because to me, how I define a drug is something that is chemically created and not just something that gives an altered perspective or altered state of your personal self, but it's a chemical. So when you say marijuana is a drug just because it has an agent that they have classified as Delta-9 THC, how then you have other mandrakes. There are other plants that have poppy. So before it's synthesized, it's not a drug, it's just a plant. So talk to us about that a little bit.
To me, this is a drug because it has a way of where it's measured as far as half-life. It has a metabolism. It goes through a system of a pathway, we call it. If it's ingested, it has to be going through our body from the mouth into our digestive system. It goes into the liver where it's metabolized, and then it's going through the rest of our body.
Exactly.
If it is being inhaled, it gets into our bloodstream.
Exactly.
So anything that we consume that has an impact, I would classify as a drug. Now, you can have a drug...
Well, let me ask you this briefly. Cayenne pepper, it has an impact.
Absolutely, but it's a naturopathic. There's different categories that we are classifying, and this is where I agree with you. Right now, cannabis is in a Schedule 1 drug classification, meaning that it has no medical use. Disagree. We've learned this.
Right.
Is there information about it? Absolutely. Maybe not all of what they like in the United States, but it's out there.
Right.
And is it have a potential for abuse? Anything could have a potential.
Absolutely. Water, you can abuse water.
Again, this is my passion, is that cannabis is not killing somebody.
Exactly.
We are getting people dead from oxycodones,
yes,
the narcotics, the Tylenol,
absolutely,
and aspirin.
Vioxx, anyone?
But again, Vioxx was a great drug, and I'm not here to promote anything. But again, you use it in the wrong person with the combination, it's deadly.
Well, I mean, you're chomping at the bit here.
Yeah, I appreciated what you had to say about drug versus plant, because it's something where I think there is we can use drug in the scientific sense, where the doctor is absolutely right. If it's got a route of administration, if it's got a half-life, these are the scientific ways that we call things drugs. But then there's also rhetoric. There's also talking and culture, right? And I think drug in our culture has this connotation of the pill, the synthetic, the artificial, and has the that there will be side effects, that there will be a certain dose, that there will be, and so if we call marijuana a drug in rhetoric, we end up getting put into that little cubby hole of, well, what's the dosage of it? How much should you use? And well, as we've discussed, cannabis is more something a patient uses and trial and error. I mean, Dr. Uma is telling me that her patients teach her how they're using it, right? So in a rhetoric situation, I like to say, opium, coca, and marijuana are plants. Right. Heroin, cocaine, and hash oil are drugs. Because now that you've modified the plant, taken out of its natural state, and put it, but that's in a rhetoric sense, not a pure scientific sense.
Now, let me hit you with this spiritual component, because I got a little age on me around here now. I was around Woodstock time, and that told. I believe that when we talk about government, it's simply a nautical term that's relative to the elite, those who would control the rest of us. In the 60s, however, we saw the love, peace, and war movement. Marijuana was a major component of bringing people together and really breaking down a lot of barriers and labels and titles. I believe one of the major components of why they had to criminalize it was to stop its influence of bringing people together where we would be loving and caring for each other on another level, or rather than, like you talked about, this incessant capitalist agenda of work until you're dead. What are your thoughts? I'd like to get your thoughts about the impact of marijuana and how it makes you a little easier to get along with. Stop y'all wanting to kill folks.
That's right. Well, many people refer to a spiritual aspect of their cannabis use, and the Woodstock era that you refer to still reverberates today in the opposition to legalization. A lot of people who are opposed to marijuana legalization aren't really upset about pot. It's pot-smoking hippies. It's liberal, progressive politics. It's Vietnam. They're still pissed about Vietnam War. Whatever. Teach. So there is that aspect to it. And if you look through all of the world religious texts, Islam and Christianity and Buddhism, all make some sort of reference to the healing nature of plants generally, and some cannabis specifically. So there is a spiritual aspect to this, and I think it's an interesting theory that there was an awakening, a renaissance in the 60s, the love generation, and let's peace, and the Beatles and John Lennon and all that going on.
Not STDs.
And I think that's
yeah, unfortunately.
And I think you're right. I think there is an aspect to the use of cannabis that is communal.
Yes.
There's a very famous Nixon tape where Richard Nixon's talking to Art Linkletter. Do you remember Art Linkletter?
Absolutely.
He's talking to Art Linkletter. Kids say the darndest things, right?
Yes.
So he's talking to Art Linkletter, and Linkletter says, well, the major difference, of course, is when people drink alcohol, they drink it to be social, but when people use marijuana, they're doing it to get high. And I'm like, what is more social than a joint circle?
Exactly.
I've never passed a beer around a bunch of fellas. I'm not doing that, but lots of people will pass a joint around. It's very social. It's one of the most social drugs there are. Cocaine, people go do that by themselves.
Absolutely. That's that girl. Let me ask my brother, because, I don't know if you smoke or not. You like a straight soldier, but, you come up from the hood. I know you've been around
Of course.
What about the spiritual components of marijuana and its influences? Of course, in the Native American community, they passed the peace pipe.
No doubt. This is the drug of choice.
Is that why they lost?
Yeah, this is the drug of choice, man. This is the drug of choice of original people, man.
Absolutely.
But right now, I don't think we should get too drugged up, man. Because I remember right after the hippie days came COINTELPRO, man. They get us like that. I think that's the part that got Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman got away with it because he had weed in his system. They criminalize you with that weed in your system. And there was a guy that got shot. They said he got handcuffs in the car and he shot himself. They said, he arrested him because he had weed on him.
Exactly.
This is it's kind of like a bait for us to bite on.
Exactly.
So I think responsible people should smoke in their house, no police, Nobody, no white people looking at you. Just be by yourself and so you're gonna do it like that. If you do it out in the open, it's a complete setup, man. That's my opinion.
Okay, well, Sister Chief, what are your thoughts? And the spiritual aspects and how, as an herbalist and a naturopath, I mean, I already know you Zen, Buddha, yeah. Go
right. Well, you know, as far as getting high, I mean, to me, these are times when, especially melanated people, need to really be alert. There's so much assault on us in particular, and assault on the human race in general. And for myself, being that I'm into you know, Tai Chi and Qigong, you know, I can elevate myself spiritually and my consciousness with my meditation. I don't need an outside substance to assist me to do that. Now, I'm not condemning or condoning someone that may need that for assistance, but if in fact they need that for assistance, I would recommend or would be, you know, I would suggest to them to, you know, to move forward with that, but to not use that long term as a crutch. Once they get over that point where they don't need that anymore, then they may be able to do it themselves, because that's what healing is. It assists the body in healing itself, and then you don't need that anymore. You don't need it as much.
So what is that, spiritual masturbation? Anyway, when we go on.
Just to add to that, you know, I am originally from India, and I come from a culture where we're about the mind, body, and spirit.
Absolutely.
And cannabis is the one drug that's out there that connects the mind and body. And, you know, the history goes back to, within the Hindu religion, Lord Shiva went up to the mountains, rested, and was underneath the cannabis tree, ate this and brought this back down. And this is why to this day in India, it's actually something that is respected in the holiday times. It's used in different forms. So it goes back to history. This is not something new. This is the beauty, again, of cannabis that I keep wanting to reiterate, is that we've known about it. We might not want to have the evidence base, but we do have the evidence base. I see it when I see my patients coming back, and they tell me about that they're off their 26 medications.
Certainly.
And they're feeling better. They're improving their lives with their families. They have a quality of life. They want to get up in the morning, and they want to be able to go to sleep at night to start that day. And so it is that, again, that adaptability and restoration of balance.
And that's the medical.
And I want to ask you, how, in our estimation, this conversation hopefully is enlightening our community that the people who use marijuana is broad, and of course we know even presidents. So I'm hoping that we can begin to change the image, the profile of the marijuana user, and then Mom and them and the conservatives and all of them begin to realize that it's just
That's the question I asked you. Who's the number one user? Which race is the number one user?
Oh, you know who the most high is. The most high is spirit.
No.
But the most high in America.
There's no most high. There is no God. Go ahead. There's no God. Go ahead.
Generally speaking, per capita rates of marijuana use are most, actually, it's Native Americans and Pacific Islanders who have the highest marijuana use. It's something like 50 to 54% of them have tried it in their lifetime. Lifetime use for white folks is somewhere around 46, 47%. For black folks, about 45%. Latinos is down to something like 20-something, and Asians is like 17.
You mean the white folks ain't the most high?
No. It's Native American Pacific Islanders.
Drugs overall.
That's right.
No, say overall drugs. Who's the most?
Oh, overall drug use? I don't know the stats.
No.
I don't know the stats.
You don't know?
I don't know.
There you go.
We'll
let him off. We'll let him off the hood this time. You know the real deal.
We know the real deal.
I did want to address Sister Chi's point, though, about, you know, the crutch, right?
Okay.
If you need a crutch for a broken leg, eventually your broken leg heals. You don't need a crutch.
Exactly.
But if you got polio, you might need to crutch all your life.
Exactly.
So let's make sure that we understand that, you know, crutches are good sometimes, you know, for helping people.
The terminology crutch for me, because see, there are some people like myself who operate at what we call an inebriated state at an optimum level of proficiency. Why? Because we're all different.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, when one individual utilizes, he becomes paranoid. Another, for me, when I want to exercise, I want to work out. I mean, I can use it for whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
And so when you talked about the sperm issue, which is a real relevant issue, I really want the doctor to discuss that as it pertains to what them saying.
All right, well, that was Russ, along with Dr. Uma and others, when he was out there in Georgia. They're on the show called The Arena. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Toker Talk Radio. Got another live show tomorrow, Russ Belville Show. Thanks for hanging again, everybody, while Russ is on the road and I'm running things here.